Alrighty, hello, I'm Dragon Blitz, and this is going to be me doing commentary for the Symphony of the Night glitchless no-hit speedrun world record. This is a bit of a challenge run mixed with a speedrun. I had the idea to challenge myself to get a goal time of a very good speedrun time, a very respectable speedrun time in the glitchless category, except without taking damage. The normal glitchless route does have us take a lot of intentional damage boosts, but I really did want to kind of challenge myself to see if I could take out those damage boosts and also remove all unintentional damage from a run and see how fast of a time I could get. I have done glitch before this attempt, before this world record. I had done a glitchless no-hit run before, but it utilized a lot of safe strats, a lot of extra spells and invincibility that ended up making the run about 5 or 6 minutes slower than the world record at the time. I believe it was like a 36-minute run where the world record's about 30 minutes flat. And I wanted a better time, basically. So that's why I went back and tried to come up with consistent, safe strats that are also fast, and that's the combination that is this run. It's a very normal glitchless run, nothing too out of the ordinary outside of a couple of specific no-hit strats going on. We played through the beginning of the game already. At this point, the prologue is done. You get to play as Richter. You kill Dracula using Hydro Storm's a very powerful item crash. But as soon as you start playing as Alucard, we get to see the basic, very well-known movement technique for Symphony of the Night that is shield dashing. We're going to be shield dashing wherever we can to save time on movement because it's about twice as fast as normal walking, sometimes faster than twice as fast. And these early areas, we're going to be extra careful about certain random enemy patterns. The first room that we started in, there's like random zombies spawning out of the ground. So I have to play it a little bit slower than I would like to because I don't want to risk taking damage from those zombies popping up out of the ground. Here, again, this is a glitchless run. We're not going to be allowing any of the very powerful glitches that give us like the best items in the game and full invincibility or whatever, infinitely repeatable invincibility. Instead, it's a glitchless run, so we can't skip death via any glitches, who takes away all of our powerful starting gear. So now we are playing with no starting gear. The only thing that we have available to us is our fists, which is thankfully a very strong weapon in and of itself. You can double hit with the fist if you are close enough to certain enemies, which means there is a risk reward of getting very close to an enemy such that your punch will hit twice, versus getting too close and accidentally taking damage, which obviously this is a no-hit run, so we're trying our best not to take any damage here. So finding the exact pixel distances that you're allowed to be for each enemy does require practice. It requires a lot of testing, a lot of skill. We pick up the leather shield here because we lost our shield early on, the one that we started with, the Alucard shield. So thankfully there's another shield nearby. So we picked that up so we can start shield dashing again right here. We also picked up the Cube of Zoe relic at the very start of the run, which allows items to finally spawn from candles. And we use that to pick up a throwing dagger. The throwing dagger is a useful sub-weapon for a few things. You can use it to increase your damage potential at the cost of hearts, but I'm actually going to be using it to break open another candle faster than I would be able to with just by throwing a punch out to collect a different sub-weapon later on that is much more useful for this run. Coming up here is the first boss fight of the run, Slogger and Gaibon. One of the things that Alucard has access to at the very beginning of the run that's kind of meant to be learned later on in a casual playthrough is spells. These spells are always available so long as you have the MP required to cast them. That first one that we did there was called Tetra Spirit. It's very powerful. It summons a bunch of ghosts on the screen to essentially be projectiles to home in on the enemies and do damage to them. That plus punches is enough to kill them very quickly. Otherwise, we'd have to risk getting a lot closer and like doing a slower boss fight with just punches or sub-weapons or something like that. Essentially, spells are very, very powerful. The other thing that's really good about spells is they also give you invincibility frames, usually about a second's worth of invincibility after casting spells. So one of the things that's also useful for this run is using the invincibility frames from spells to make certain enemies less likely to hit you, as well as just bypassing enemies altogether. Another thing that gives you invincibility frames in this game is getting a level up. In this particular route, there are no intentional level up invincibility frames that is used. I don't believe so, at least. It's technically possible that you could, but here's one of those enemies that causes a lot of trouble in a normal run, which is the Fleamen. Their patterns are incredibly chaotic and random. So the Summon Spirit that I use there, which is a different spell than Tetra Spirit, costs less MP and it comes out faster. to only summon one spirit. The reason I use it is to both have the spirit help me kill the enemy if I can't kill it fast enough, but also give me iframes in case the enemy charges me with a random pattern that is very dangerous. So yeah, spell's very useful. The other thing that gives you iframes that's very useful is the use of specific potions, mana prisms, healing potions that heal your health, as well as a couple of other things, anti-venoms and uncurse. They all give you a brief period of invincibility, and that'll be used later to do a skip that skips requiring a specific item in the game. Saves a couple of minutes in the glitchless run by abusing invincibility to bypass needing the spike breaker. Yeah, all these enemies, these guys' their patterns are pretty standard. Like, we don't have to worry about like any randomness from them. This is another example of the iframes from the summon spirit, allowing us to fully move through those enemies. It's not risk-free, because if I shield dash a little too slowly through those enemies, I could end up in trouble where my iframes run out before I get all the way past them, and then I'll take damage, obviously. A lot of the times, I'm also just going to be avoiding enemies flat out by jumping over them. So by jumping over those enemies, I don't even have to worry about it. We did pick up that stopwatch earlier. We threw a dagger to kill an enemy and then used our jump attack to break open a candle, and then we got the stopwatch sub-weapon. The stopwatch is very useful for a couple different things. It stops enemies in place. It doesn't work on most bosses. However, this doppelganger boss is fully affected by the stopwatch, freezing him completely, making the boss fight completely trivial. He'll stand still. We just punch him a bunch, and we move on. The other thing is right now, the way that Symphony of the Night works as a video game is every time you level up, your stats increase by a slightly random amount. So essentially you can get a max stat increase or like a neutral stat increase, I believe, or no stat increase. So it's basically you get +1, +2, or +0 to a given stat based off of a level, I believe is how it works. But the amount that you get per level up is random. So you can't guarantee that you have the same strength level and that you're doing the same amount of damage every single time. So because of that, I don't know how much damage I'm doing, and it's within a random range. So oftentimes I have to test certain damage thresholds on enemies as I punch them or do damage to them to get an idea of how quickly I'm going to kill certain enemies, or if I'm able to go for specific strats versus certain enemies. The whole reason we went this direction for the early part of the game is so we can get the Soul of Wolf, which you saw me use the wolf to jump up a slope and break open a pot much earlier than is intended. You're not intended to do slope wolf jump mechanics like that. It's like an unintended consequence of the physics engine of the game. The pot we broke open gave us the Garnet item. It's a sellable gem that'll give us $5,000 that we can use in the shop later. And from here, I'm using the wolf for movement here because it's slightly faster than shield dashing. Plus, the wolf's damage threshold for its bark attack is based off of your intelligence stat. And at this point, I believe your intelligence is almost always guaranteed to be high enough to kill those enemies in one hit. Like, I think even at level 1, it might be enough. I'm not entirely sure, but essentially it's guaranteed at that point that you're going to do enough damage. And the wolf movement is a little bit risky as well, because if I make any mistakes, I'm very close to getting damaged by enemies. But in this run, like I said, I'm trying to go as fast as I can while taking no damage. So another one here is, this looks scarier than it actually is, but you should be pretty safe to not take damage by even getting close to those enemies. They're pretty passive, all things considered. And the whole reason we were able to get up here is because the wolf gives us additional movement options. Not only does it let us jump up slopes, but we used it earlier for the wolf jump. Jumping as wolf, untransforming, and then dive kicking off of a candle. You get a dive kick after transforming and then untransforming midair in wolf form. Earlier, you saw me punch the skeleton soldier here. The reason I did that was me testing for my damage threshold, because randomly you will either kill that enemy in 1 punch versus 2 punches. As soon as I saw that it took 2 punches, I decided not to attempt to attack any more of those skeletons, because it's slower at that point to punch them than it is to just jump over them and ignore them, unless you kill them in exactly 1 hit. Here, this boss fight is pretty unique because these enemies will stand still for quite a bit if you skip the cutscene dialogue. So I'm able to do a lot of damage to the Minotaur before he's able to hurt me. And then I use spells to finish off Werewolf along with a few punches. If you have enough strength, you're able to not require the second Tetra Spirit, which would have saved me a lot of time here because Tetra Spirit does cost a decent amount of MP here. But instead, now I have to go out of my way to go to a save room to refill my magic. So anytime I go to a save room, this fully refills my HP and my magic. So now my magic is full, so I can go into this room, which is probably the scariest room in the game, to be honest, because if I make a single mistake here, it's very easy to take damage. Stopwatch to freeze the enemies below that shoot the rifles. Then I use a Tetra Spirit for iframes, and then a specific jump to avoid those rifle enemies as well, so I can get past all these guys to grab this shield rod. This takes pretty much all of my magic, so I have to play it very well. I have to execute the spells, which are not trivial as far as execution goes, but it's definitely worth it because the shield rod in conjunction with the iron shield that I just bought is going to be my primary source of doing damage now for the rest of the run. I also bought a few other things. I bought some library cards, and I also have a heart refresh in my inventory. This is in my inventory because at the very beginning of the run, during the prologue, I used all of the hearts that I grabbed throughout the prologue. And if you end with 0 hearts in your inventory, that gives you a heart refresh as soon as you start playing as Alucard. So here I use the heart refresh so I can have more uses of that stopwatch. The stopwatch costs 20 hearts, so I can only use 4 stopwatches so far from full here. Very useful for this hallway because these enemies are very random and very chaotic. So the flea armors are very scary, so I use 2 stopwatches in total. Just kill the flea armor, get it out of my way. And now you're going to be seeing that shield rod spell here. I charge it up, fire it off here. And I basically am trying to manipulate the enemies, the bosses, such that the swords that are flying across the screen are inside of the enemy for as long as possible. And that is based off of your position on the screen compared to the enemy. So essentially it's a camera manipulation to have the swords do as much damage as possible. Here, since we had the Form of Mist relic, which was given to us after beating Minotaur and Werewolf, that lets us get past the Mist Gate to get to this next relic, which was the Soul of Bat. After grabbing the Soul of Bat, we now have flight as well as access to the Wing Smash spell. For the cost of some mana, you can use the Wing Smash spell to invincible charge through the air for a brief period of time before it forcibly untransforms you and puts you back into Alucard form. But if you're able to chain the Wing Smash input over and over again once per second, you're able to sustain the Wing Smash state, which is full invincibility, and you're charging through the air very, very quickly. It's like the primary speedrun tech that's going to be seen throughout the run. However, it costs a lot of magic, so I'm still going to be using Wolf Movement where I can, where that's faster, as well as Shield Dashes as well to save on MP. Another thing that's nice about the Bat transformation is while you're transforming into Bat, you maintain your momentum. So if I start a backdash and then transform into Bat, I will, during the Bat transformation, stay at the backdash speed the entire time, which is another way to like preserve momentum and like keep the movement nice and fast throughout. Another thing that's important about this run is making frequent stops at save rooms to refill my MP so I can do more wing smashing. So this is all trade-offs between how fast is it to make a pit stop at a save station versus just waiting for my MP to regen naturally. And MP regen is pretty slow. It's 1 MP per second. And each wing smash costs 8 magic points total. So every time you see a chunk of my MP bar going down, that's me using a wing smash spell. But the invincibility part is very, very important. So especially with certain enemies through here. Thankfully, this area is pretty consistent. If you move fast enough, you're basically never in danger of these enemies, which is very, very nice. So I didn't have to use like a stopwatch or anything like that. So as long as I don't mess up a wing smash input and I don't run out of MP at any given time, these areas are pretty consistent, but the wing smash input is pretty tricky, all things considered. And another thing that comes up, like this boss fight right here, I don't have enough MP to cast the Shield Rod spell when I would like to, and that leaves me in a less than optimal position to kill this guy fast, and that ends up costing me about 10 seconds. The reason being, the same way that I talked about my strength stat being randomized, the amount of max MP you have is also randomized. So again, the amount of MP you gain per level is random. So because of that, sometimes you have a good MP roll in a run and you have enough wing smashes to like get through easy peasy every single time. Other times your MP's looking a little rough just due to random chance, and you have to go for slower strats that are a lot safer. One of the strats that I came up for this run is I intentionally go out of my way to grab the Power of Mist. It is not a required relic at all, but it allows me to stay in Mist form indefinitely so long as I have MP. And not only that, every time I transform into Mist now, it costs significantly less MP than it would otherwise. Normally in Symphony of the Night, if I went through and did a Mist transformation, it costs 20 MP total, versus now it's 2 MP per second that I'm in the Mist transformation. So if I want to do something like transform into Mist and then quickly transform back into Bat, or just untransform altogether, it saves me a lot of MP, and that's MP that I could save for Wing Smashes that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So very, very nice. It's like a 10-second detour to grab it, but in my mind, it's much more consistent to do a run like this, no hit, when you have access to a Mist transformation that makes you invincible, by the way. So worst case scenario, I can trade in my MP for full invincibility in certain scary situations to prevent getting damaged that way. But that's a manipulation. The Hippogriff fight there, where you get in front of the Hippogriff to cause him to fly up in the air, and then you basically track him in the air with the swords from the Iron Shield, Shield Rod combination spell. It's very, very powerful. And here is where I was talking about using iframes from potions. Here I'm going to be using my Mana Prism that I picked up earlier from the shop to be invincible, to not take damage from the spikes. Very, very important. Otherwise, this route would not work. The reason we're going this way is because it lets us get the silver ring much faster than normal. In this game, if you're not using glitches, you need to collect the silver ring and the gold ring in order to go back to the central clock room to get the Holy Glasses item. And that Holy Glasses item then lets you go into the second castle, do the end game content, beat the bosses in the second castle, and go from there. So Silver Ring is required alongside Gold Ring. We're going to the caverns right now to get the Gold Ring. We use the library card after grabbing Silver Ring to get teleported back to the library, which is very nice. It's a fast way to move around the castle. It's one of the reasons we bought library cards earlier. And now from here, a big portion of the movement comes down to managing our MP levels such that we are maximizing the amount of speed we get per Wing Smash. One of the ways that we're doing that is by maintaining our speed when we transform into Bat, by dive kicking and then transforming into Bat, maintaining that momentum. And then we do singular Wing Smashes and let the Wing Smash ride out in full, because that lets us go farther than infinite Wing Smashes would, because we're not cutting into any of the Wing Smash timer. And right here, I'm also doing a slightly slower strat than normal, where normally in the world record route for the glitchless run, we would do damage boosts off of those enemies, such that we would dive kick, transform into Bat, and then the damage from the enemy would untransform us into Bat faster than the normal untransformation animation. But we can't do that here, so we have to be a little bit more conservative with our movement options. But again, it's all in the for the goal of beating the game without taking damage once. Now that we're in the caverns, we go this direction here. So we can go towards the next boss fight, which is going to be versus Succubus. After defeating Succubus, we get the gold ring, which will then let us go into the second castle and stuff. We do make a quick pit stop to grab the Moonstone. It's an item that essentially increases our stats by 5 each, which is, it's nice. Every stat boost does matter, especially for the late game bosses, because we are going to be quite underpowered going into the end game, because we are skipping a lot of bosses that are intended to be fought. Here, if we just stand in a specific spot, the shield spell starts doing damage immediately, and then we keep the swords inside of the Succubus as much as possible, killing her basically instantly. Very, very nice. There's that gold ring. And then we get to do some slick movement here by combining our double jump that we got alongside the dive kicks that we get from the double jump, the Mist transformation, the Bat Wing Smashes. A lot of very clean movement is available in this game, and it's one of the reasons why I love speedrunning this game so much, is that you are constantly in a flow state, moving between double jumps, dive kicks, back dashes, wing smashes, canceling all those things into other options. Very, very cool. Another thing that's important to note about transformations in this game is you are invincible during the transformation animation, but you're vulnerable at the end of it. So one of the things I will do to try and like dodge past enemies is I will dive kick and then cancel that dive kick into a transformation. It's kind of like a dodge roll in a way, because I'm like moving across the screen with invincibility, and then the end lag of that dive kick leaves me vulnerable. So I have to space it properly. Here I'm wearing the gold ring and the silver ring that is required in this clock room to open up the secret floor underneath, so that way I can go down there and collect the holy glasses from Maria. But above the clock room, is another important relic, the gravity boots. It allows us to do large vertical jumps at the cost of 5 MP per gravity jump. It's very useful for speed reasons. Anytime that we would fly up a long hallway like we just did, we could use gravity boots instead, and it ends up being about the same as far as like MP requirements, because if you're in the bat transformation, it costs 1 MP per second while you're in the bat transformation. But if you're just gravity jumping up those like larger shafts, it ends up saving time in the long run, and also saving MP as well. There's the holy glasses given to us right here. Here we finally equip the moonstone, we equip the holy glasses, and we use our last library card. This will instantly teleport us back to the library, which is close to a teleporter, which is very nice. And we're going to use that teleporter to go back to the castle keep so we can go towards the second castle, because with holy glasses, there's nothing stopping us going to the second castle now. And one of the things that I do like about this category as well is we go through this room multiple times because library cards are just an efficient way to get through the castle and like warp around the castle. But every time we do, we're at a different level, which means we have a different amount of MP, which means the strats that we do to get through the library and like leave the library quickly is different every time. The first time we use the wolf because it's more MP efficient for speed purposes. The second time we do a lot of wing smashes, but we also do some dive kicks in between. And then the last time we're there, we're basically just wing smashing the entire way through because our MP is large enough such that we don't need to stop wing smashing, really. And there's enough MP refills along the way at save stations such that now the way that we want to think about movement in this game is that we want to use our wing smashes as much as possible right up until we enter the next save room. Because any MP that we have stored before going to a save room is MP that we could have used on a wing smash, which would have been faster than just any other form of movement. It's the fastest form of movement, so we need to be wing smashing as much as possible, basically using the last bit of juice right before a save room every single time. There we do a quick little sequence of spells to get past the shaft orb that is controlling Richter, so we can enter the second castle. That's what we needed the holy glasses for. As long as you're wearing the holy glasses, you can do that sequence of inputs and get into the second castle. And now, our goal in the second castle is to get to the final boss, Dracula, and kill him as quick as possible. The way we're going to be doing that is by collecting all of the other relics that are left in the game that are blocking our path towards fighting Dracula. There's 5 Vlad relics, the pieces of Vlad. Once we collect all 5 of them, we can then fight the final boss and finish the run. Those bosses are specifically based on the original Castlevania 1 boss fights. So we have the Giant Bat, we have Medusa, we have Frankenstein, aka the Creature, we have the Mummy, aka Akmadon, and we also have Death, of course, the Grim Reaper. Almost forgot about him. He's a pretty big guy, pretty important. Right there, we saw us collecting our first piece of Vlad there from the Giant Bat. And now we're going to continue to use the Wing Smash to the best of our ability. This is probably the last important place for the stopwatch. These rooms are, in my mind, the worst rooms in the game. Much like how the Super Metroid community has a worst room in the game. These 2 rooms back to back, you have constantly respawning enemies. You have enemies that are flying and chasing you down. The stopwatch, thankfully, freezes them all in place. So with the stopwatch, we can just basically ignore all of the possible bad stuff there. Along the way, before exiting that area, we do pick up a Holy Water subweapon. That subweapon is going to be our subweapon of choice now that we don't really need the stopwatch anymore for doing damage. Along the way, we also pick up the Dragon Helm. This is an item that lowers the defense of all enemies, such that all of our attacks are basically going to be doing a lot more damage, which at this point in the run, our damage is good, but it always could be better. And the Dragon Helm is along the way. It ends up saving time in the long run, and it makes things faster, because the faster you kill bosses, the better. This is another tricky point where we're going to be using a lot of wing smashes back and forth, canceling the wing smash with a mistransformation, transforming back into bat, doing another wing smash. It costs a lot of MP, but it is the fastest and in a lot of ways safest way to get through this area, because you don't want to possibly get hit by the projectiles from these Jacko bones there. There, I didn't have enough MP to go for another wing smash, so instead I decided to just use mist movement instead. And here my MP is slightly lower than I would like, so I'm just using a backup fight where I'm just using the Holy Water to kill Creature here. Otherwise, I would be using the shield spell. So it's just unfortunate that our MP is slightly lower than I would like. Otherwise, I would have used the shield spell for big damage here, but we get the Tooth of Vlad and we can move on. Thankfully, there's a save room right here. We refill our MP, and we do more wing smashes to get out of here. Our next goal is to go towards the caverns, to go to the mines and then fight death. But there's a lot of movement in between. And here is another one of those like really long hallways where you have to plan out exactly how many wing smashes you're going to be doing here. Because if you run out of wing smashes in any of these spots, you're in big trouble. There's these spike traps on the floor. There's the skeletons that are constantly throwing these bouncing bones. There's the Nova skeletons that have giant hitbox laser beams. So if you mess up any movement there, it's very scary. But if you plan out your MP accordingly, you can make it through like I did here. Stop at the next save room. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is very similar to the normal glitchless run. However, this next section is actually very, very different, mostly because I stopped to refill my MP there, where in a normal glitchless run, I wouldn't refill my MP at that save room. I would refill it at the save room to the left of where I am right now, because there's a different MP route that involves a large damage boost called a Big Toss, where I would intentionally get hit by one of those enemies, the enemy that I'm leveling up off of right there, the Rock Knight, to send me flying across the room. It requires that I take over half of my health in a single hit. However, this is a hitless run, so I have to spend, instead of just flying for free basically by using a damage boost, I have to spend my MP, which means I have to then refill my MP here. This save room, this MP refill, would be skipped in a world record attempt of glitchless, and that saves like 10 seconds, I want to say. So, just a different route here. Oh, and this boss fight is beautiful. I'm going to swing my cane into Shaft here, and then cast the spell, canceling the normal attack animation. The initial hit sends death into the spawn point of the spell, and then I'm able to just like follow him across the screen with it. And then phase 2, you just spawn the shield rod spell inside of death, killing him basically instantly for phase 2. And that's our next Vlad relic done. We have 3 out of the 5 required. Here, I do have to be very careful because if I don't wing smash immediately there, those bats will fly into me and basically kill me. There is a safer option there if I am scared of taking damage and want to go for a safer route that involves using the Mist and Power of Mist. But instead, again, I'm going for speed here. I say if I take damage, scale issue, I should have just wing smashed faster. Here we use the teleporter to teleport back to the inverted castle keep, where we started our journey in the second castle. Here's another room that can be scary. If you drop a wing smash, you'll keep flying and then get ejected out of the bat transformation. And if I do it at the wrong spot, I can just get flung into an enemy. So I have to be very careful with my wing smash inputs. The input's quite complicated. You have to hold the jump button. You have to hold up on the control stick and then do a 3/4 circle motion from back down to forward and then release the jump button. It's pretty consistent if you practice it a lot. However, you can't make any shortcuts in that motion. You have to hit every diagonal. You have to hit every single input. You have to release jump after pressing forward. So if you make any mistake in any of those inputs, you're in big trouble, basically. There is another instance where you use invincibility frames from specifically the gravity jump to not take damage there. Pretty risky, all things considered. I feel like in a marathon run, I would just use Power of Mist instead. But again, this run was all about world record pace, going as fast as I possibly could. And honestly, the movement is very, very similar to a normal glitchless run, which is ultimately what my goal was for this run, was to play the glitchless route basically perfectly and take no damage, and then make adjustments to the strats that required damage boosts, essentially, because there are a handful that are faster because of the MP management side of things. Here, this is Akmadon. He's weak to fire and holy water, ironically enough, does holy damage and fire damage. So just by throwing a couple holy waters on the ground, it kills him very, very quickly. That's convenient for us because it saves us MP on doing the spell. And that's the last Vlad relic. We got the Heart of Vlad from Medusa earlier. And here I'm finally using the Mana Prism that I just picked up in the chapel. Thankfully, this route has Mana Prisms in very convenient spots along the way. The inverted chapel had a Mana Prism for us, so that's why I went out of my way to grab it. Here I'm going to be wing smashing through here. Another scary place, because if I drop a wing smash, those ghost dancers are basically guaranteed to hit me. And then there's another Mana Prism right here. So I essentially get to use my full movement at my disposal here because I'm guaranteed to refill my MP with that second mana prism. So here it looks like I'm running low on MP, which I am, but I have a second mana prism, so it doesn't really matter. It probably would have been faster to just use the mana prism and then use that wing smash movement there, but that's, you know, hindsight. That's like the one, honestly, like the one criticism I have for the run. Everything else was incredibly clean. I think I maybe made like 2 movement mistakes at all, and the rest of the mistakes came down to not getting lucky with my stats. So the strats weren't even like bad. It's just I had to change which strat I used on the fly based off of how quickly I would kill certain enemies or how much magic I had for wing smashes, which is ultimately where the time save and time loss of this run kind of comes into at a high level. You need like really good stats for like the best possible time save in one of these types of runs. But here we are facing off against the final bosses in the game. Use that mana prism because I'm going to be using a lot of spells versus Shaft and Dracula, the last 2 bosses. So this fight is really cool. I use a position in the background to line up where I'm going to start the spell. I use a jump, so that way the spell starts slightly higher, and then Shaft will like fly into the spawn point of the spell, and then the swords will kind of follow him across the screen as well. Another one of the cool ways of utilizing the strengths of the Shield Rod spell with Iron Shield. And now we're fighting Dracula. This fight is very scary for a lot of people, but thankfully, Dracula is one of the most consistent boss fights in the game because his fight is fully scripted. If you stand on the left side at the start of the fight, he will always use his left hand first to try and swipe and hit you. So if you time it properly, you just move to the right, and now he's programmed to swipe with the hand that's closest to him. So he swipes with the right hand, moves over, swipes with the left hand again. Meanwhile, I'm just doing damage the entire time by using Shield Rod spells and waiting for the shield spell to completely finish before starting the next one. And with those spells, that is enough to finish the run with a 31:28, I believe was the exact time. For reference, to this day, this run was completed in 2023. Right now in 2025, this is still the second fastest time on the leaderboard for glitchless in general. I currently hold the world record for glitchless, which is about 45 seconds to a minute faster than this, I believe. I forget the exact time for my glitchless time. But if this was on the leaderboard as a separate time, it would be the second fastest time on the leaderboard. So incredibly fast, all things considered. Very clean run. Most of the time loss came from the fact that I couldn't use the damage boosts that save, I think, over the course of the run, probably close to like 20 seconds. And then the rest of the time loss, I think, came down to not getting good RNG on my stats. But that is one of the things about the glitchless runs, is that your stats are never guaranteed. So ultimately, you kind of have to just like deal with the run that you're given. This ended up being very clean. This was my first clear under 33 minutes, which was my goal. And I shattered it by 1.5 minutes, which is crazy. But in my mind, a 33-minute time would have been good because I think that would have been 3rd place on the leaderboard. But getting 2nd place on the leaderboard while doing it hitless, only behind my world record time, is pretty wild. I love this speedrun. It showcases a lot of the intricacies of movement in Symphony of the Night. It showcases a lot of the skill, a lot of the cool spells that you never get to see with like Shield Rod and stuff like that in Iron Shield, and doing it all hitless. This is kind of one of my, in my opinions, most high skill expression run that I've ever done. So it was a lot of fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your consideration for this being in any marathons or whatever. And thanks.